I'm Dave Greenwood, and this is Overcoming Distractions. If you are an adult with ADHD, a busy professional, an entrepreneur, a high achiever, or just need some strategies to navigate your adult ADHD, you're in the right place. Who am I? I'm an entrepreneur with ADHD and the author of 2 books, Overcoming Distractions and Overcoming Burnout. I coach and mentor people just like you, and together we navigate the ups and downs of adult ADHD. From getting out of our own way to helping people just like you thrive in the workplace. That's what I do. Want more info on working with me? Hit overcomingdistractions.com. Ready? Let's get to today's podcast. All right, everybody. It is Overcoming Distractions. We are back, and let's just get right into this. The name of the podcast is Overcoming Distractions, and once again, we're going to dig into this subject. Obviously, we talk a lot about distractions on this podcast because all of us are dealing with them at one time or another. The strategies involved in minimizing distractions, I think, can differ depending on your environment, things you have going on, your career, your work responsibilities, your family life. Things change. However, one way to minimize those distractions is through the practice of willpower. Now, before you go and click this podcast off, please just hang with us. We're going to try and make this a little simpler than the scary word of willpower sounds, okay? And, I get it. Our brain does our own things sometimes. Totally get it. And when we're talking about ADHD, things aren't so as simple as they sound. I know people say, oh, just focus. I get it. Okay. We've heard that joke before. Okay. But we have to work with some effective strategies to help us minimize the distractions in our life. It's how we get through the day, how we get through life, and how we thrive as busy adults with ADHD. So I am pleased to welcome back Giovanni Dienstmann. He is a sought-after meditation teacher. He's the author of the books Practical Meditation, Mindful Discipline, and Wise Confidence, which is his new book. So welcome back, sir.
Thank you, David. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, I have enjoyed our conversations, over the years. And one in particular was conversation we had, which is in my book, Overcoming Burnout, where you were very methodical about teaching people just the basic framework for getting started on meditation. And I thought that was a very, I wouldn't say simple, but well-constructed conversation. So I thank you for that, because I think that's actually one of my favorite chapters in the book. So
absolutely.
So,
wonderful.
Yeah. So and like I said, you've been so methodical about how people, because I think sometimes people, when they, especially in the ADHD world, even you tell them to go sit quietly for 5 minutes, they get scared.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yes.
have you found that?
Yes, it's I get this question all the time. Like, you talk about awareness and willpower and self-discipline, but what about for us with ADHD? I'll say, well, you need these skills just like everyone else. The challenge is that it's harder for you, but there's still a way forward. There's still a way that you can take that next step and improve these skills.
Yeah. So we're gonna get into that. Excuse me, I have a frog in my throat. We don't edit here, people, so if I got to clear my throat, you're hearing it. So so I'm gonna go out on the limb here and say that willpower is kind of a scary word for some people with ADHD. And I'll go even further, that some, not all, might actually even have their mind made up
Mm.
about the concept of
Mhm.
willpower. I like to think that at least listeners of this podcast, whether adults, busy professionals, some even high achievers, they do have an open mind. So, I'll give all you people out there a little more credit. Okay, so that you're open to these discussions and hearing these strategies about self discovery, self awareness, and I think a big part of that is willpower. So, that being said, would you do us a favor? And I know it's probably an enormous definition, but maybe in simple, brief terms, can you define what willpower is for people?
Mhm. So, willpower is the capacity that we have to control our attention, to regulate our emotions, to control our actions, in spite of the presence of competing stimuli, and that we can resolve conflicts between short term goals and long term goals. So, willpower is what allows us to take action, to coach ourselves, to guide ourselves in the direction of our values. That maybe your environment is pushing you to go left, and maybe your mind, your brain, your thoughts, your impulses are pushing you to go left. But if you know that your values point you to go right, the capacity to go right in spite of that competing stimuli, that is willpower. And I know why most people don't like this concept is because they feel that willpower doesn't work. It can be an extremely frustrating experience that every time I try to use willpower, it doesn't work. So it is easier to believe that, it just doesn't work, or at least it's not for me, and then try something else. When I was studying more deeply about ADHD, one of the experts that I came across said that ADHD should be IDHD. It's not an attention deficit disorder. It should be considered an intention deficit disorder. And that maps very well with the people that I've worked with. People with ADHD that I've worked with, they usually have really good awareness. They know what they want to do. They know that they are not doing it. They know that they are getting distracted, but they feel that they can't do anything about it. So the awareness is there. It can still be made stronger, deeper, more fine-tuned, but the awareness is there. What's not there is willpower. And I believe that that's one of the key elements that we need to train. Everyone needs to train this. People with ADD even more, because they have more difficulty with this initially than neurotypicals.
I think you're right. I think I've heard so many people and a lot of people I've worked with one on one where they know what they need to do. They know that that's that's not the issue. It's it's actually getting it done. I know I need to do this project. I know I need to work on these tasks or what have you. But there just seems to be uh, a disconnect between what I know I need to do and actually how to get there. So that I think
Mhm.
that is a there's a there's a there's a years long debate about changing the the definition of ADHD and the
Right,
letters
right.
and the acronym and all that. So so that being said, um, is willpower, in your opinion, a daily habit that we um, must seek to acquire? I think you've mentioned before it's it's like a muscle, like it's like
Mhm.
building a muscle. So
Right.
so uh is it just something that is it almost like a mindset? Like this needs to be a daily habit of mine.
I think it's good to create a habit around exercising willpower.
Mm.
Willpower itself is it's a faculty of the mind, just like focusing or memory or analysis. These are all faculties of the mind, and willpower is one of the key faculties of the mind. I like to think of it as a muscle, yes, because it can be trained. And over time, if you train it regularly, then it becomes stronger. Many people quote that study that says, there were two groups of people that were going to go through a challenging cognitive task. And when you go through a challenge cognitive task, you need willpower to keep trying, even though it's frustrating and you're not moving forward. That takes willpower. And these two groups of people, one of them was in a room where there was some chocolate cookies, and they could eat them if they wanted. And the other group was in another room where there was the same chocolate cookies, smelling delicious, and then a bowl of salad or something else. And they were told that you cannot eat the chocolate cookies, but you can eat the salad if you like. And then these two groups of people went through the same test of willpower. And people who did not need to resist the chocolate cookies because they could eat them, they continued longer in that willpower test, while the other ones, they gave up sooner. And the conclusion that many people draw from this is that willpower doesn't work because it's a depleting it's a depleting thing. The more you use it, the less you have it. But there's a big disconnect. There's something here that everyone is missing. If you go to the gym and you push really hard on the weights, right, and then you go and you try to lift a heavy jar after that, it'll be harder for you to lift that heavy jar than the other version of yourself that didn't go to the gym. Does that mean that going to the gym doesn't work? Does that mean that training our muscles doesn't work? No, it just means that right after we exercise willpower, there is a period where that energy kind of goes down. But when it comes back up, as a phenomenon known as supercompensation, when it goes back up, it goes back above the initial baseline. And so that is the nature of training willpower. When we use our willpower, it takes cognitive resources from the brain. It takes the glucose in our bloodstream, and we feel a little bit depleted after that. But by training willpower every day, we get to a new baseline where going through the same tasks again become easier. And so that is the idea of training willpower. It is like training a muscle, and you need to keep at it with patience, with perseverance. Just like going to the gym, you're not going to become ripped overnight. The same thing with willpower.
I would imagine there's an element of dopamine as well when it comes to that. I know there's been a lot of research about how pushing yourself even just a little above what you wanted to do has recently proven that increases dopamine, and then over time you can extend that willpower. So that's right. And dopamine's again one of those buzzwords when it comes to ADHD. We all need the good dopamine when we're ADHD. So
right. And so a simple way of thinking about training your willpower is every day do something that is difficult for you. Set a strong intention to do something that kind of goes against what the environment, what your thoughts, what your impulses are pushing you to do. And in the beginning, you may not be able to do that very well, and that's okay. Know that that's part of the process. But over time, as you persevere in this practice, you will notice some improvement with your willpower. And this is applicable. This has effects in all areas of your life. Roy Baumeister, one of the big names in psychology, and especially in the study of willpower, he wrote a book called Willpower: Rediscovering the Greatest Human Strength. And he and his colleagues have discovered after a lot of study that willpower and intelligence, these are the two elements that are most essential for you to have success across all areas of life. And we don't know exactly how to increase intelligence. We have some clues, but it's not so straightforward. But increasing willpower, we know how to increase willpower. Every time you do something that goes against what you would like to do in that moment, you're increasing willpower. When you feel like procrastinating and you go and do that difficult task, you go and sit down and do your tax returns or whatever is the boring thing that you're trying to avoid. Yeah. You have just exercised the muscle of willpower there. If you do this every day, it will grow.
Yeah. So since we're talking about distractions and willpower, and obviously distractions is 80% of why we're here, because we're all dealing with them. I think I remember you talking about distractions as like seeking energy, and maybe it's not the right energy. So can you kind of elaborate on that? Because you're right. You can either do your taxes or you can go on YouTube and watch, music videos. So Is it just seeking a different kind of energy?
Right. So I call seeking energy the nature of dopamine, that it seeks rewards, is that energy inside of us that is always seeking to feel good. It's seeking to experience a reward. Now, I make a differentiation in my book between healthy dopamine and junk dopamine.
Yeah.
Junk dopamine is instant gratification. It's a little bit like it's fast food. It's the fast food version of dopamine. That's why I call it junk dopamine. It kind of satisfies the itch on the surface level, but it doesn't really satisfy you. It doesn't have the nutrition that you need to be happy. And the problem is our life, our environment, our devices, the apps, the services, the websites, all of this is trying to lure us with junk dopamine. Yeah. It's promising one shot of quick dopamine after another. And then when we do that for several hours every day, then it's very hard for us to feel motivated to seek the long-term dopamine, the healthier version of dopamine, which happens as you're making progress towards your long-term goals, as you're living according with your values, as you're growing yourself in exercise, in fitness, in mind training, whatever it is. That is the healthy dopamine. And just like the slow food versus the fast food, we naturally go more towards the junk food, which is the distraction. Yeah. So, the problem with distractions is not so much the time that they waste. If you just have 1 hour of distractions a day, you may say, okay, I'm just wasting 1 hour. But the problem is that during that 1 hour, you are training yourself to be a junk dopamine addict. You are training your mind to go after that high stimulation of TikTok videos and YouTubes and Instagram. And during the other 23 hours, when you want to focus on something else, on something slower, on something that doesn't have a peak of dopamine every 15 seconds, you find that you can't, because it feels boring, it feels uninteresting, and your mind goes into distractions.
Yeah. Yeah. And going back to that muscle that you talked about, you're right. You're training your brain to go to YouTube, have a chocolate bar, have a cheeseburger.
Right. Mind snacking.
Yeah.
Mind snacking.
Or hit TikTok for 2 hours. Yeah. Yeah, that makes total sense. So another thing that, and this could be a completely whole conversation, but I'd love you to touch on the concept of decision fatigue, because I know all of us deal with it. Sometimes we deal with it first thing in the morning, what we're going to wear, what we're going to eat, all these things. We just get in these loops. Does that, is that connected to the concept of willpower? So are decision fatigue and willpower actually connected?
Yes. So the way, if you want to enhance your willpower, you can train your willpower by exercising it, or you can also make certain lifestyle changes that will help you conserve and grow your willpower.
Yeah.
Exercising willpower takes cognitive resources, and making decisions, thinking deeply about something, whether they are small decisions or big decisions, that also takes cognitive resources. So they're both drawing from the same pool of mental energy. And if you have so many small decisions that you need to go through every day, you are exhausting that pool of energy that is also used by willpower. Yeah. So what we can do is, even without exercising that muscle, as a complement to that exercise, is simplify our life as much as possible, so that we don't need to make many decisions. Maybe I'm always going to wear the same thing on Monday and the same thing on Tuesday and the same thing on Wednesday. So for every week of the year, I don't need to decide. It's already decided. Maybe it's something else. Maybe you want to say no to certain projects, so that you have fewer things on your mind, fewer open loops in your mind that are consuming that energy in the background. As much as you can, simplify your life and put yourself in a situation where you don't need to go through small decisions every day, that decisions that are not meaningful. That will help you conserve your energy. Don't know where I'm going to eat today. Okay, just have a list of 5 places that you want and randomly choose one of them, toss a coin, do whatever you want. But spending 3 minutes thinking about this and weighing the possibilities in your mind, that's going to waste some energy that could be there available for more important things.
You know, excuse me, everybody. I I, I am a big fan of I guess what I would call bulletproofing my mornings. Um, and I think one of the ways that we can do that is to, you know, essentially prepare your morning the night before. There's a lot of people I talk to where mornings just quickly turn into a dumpster fire. Like you say, we don't know what we're going to have for breakfast. Maybe the coffee machine wasn't set up. The kids' homework wasn't printed out. The list goes on. And I am more than convinced that if your morning is a dumpster fire, guess what happens to the rest of the day? You
Right.
know?
Right.
So those decisions, as you say, to simplify your life can, one big way I think is to be able to just get that the night before, lay out your clothes, have what's going to be for breakfast, put the coffee machine on a timer, have the laptop charged and by the door. Those types of things. Would you agree?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
I have clients that, for example, they want to eat healthy every night. And, at the end of the day, you have to decide what you're going to eat. You have to cut the vegetables. You have to maybe go and buy stuff. And they end up going for the easy, quick solutions, which is not so healthy food. So then what I recommend is once a week on Sunday, you plan your meals for the whole week.
Yeah.
And then you don't need to think about it. And that simple shift, which is basically what you're sharing, just in this case, on a weekly basis, makes a huge difference.
Yeah. Yeah. We try most weeks to even cook things ahead of time. Like Sunday night, we'll cook things that even make the evenings easier. So we'll have prepared foods that make dinner much quicker and more efficient. Those types of things. But again, I call it kind of bulletproofing parts of your day where it's just not. Yeah, there's times you're like, you know what, I don't want that. Let's go out to eat, and it happens. But the more that you can just make the week easier, reduces those decisions. So,
Right.
yeah,
Right.
and I'm a huge fan of that. So let's talk. Maybe biology is the wrong word, but are there easier times during the day that might make willpower more easy to implement in our lives? So, for example, I'm just thinking out loud here, but after a good night's sleep, after a good meal, after a shower, the environment, both physically and mentally, is there to be able to think about willpower. Do you know where I'm going with that?
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Anything that replenishes our energy, such as a nap or a full night of sleep, a good meal, a little bit of meditation, even laying down on your sofa and listening to some music that you enjoy, everything that replenishes your energy, a walk in nature, willpower will be easier to exercise after that.
Yeah.
But in our most knowledge workers these days, they set themselves up, or they are expected to set themselves up their work routine in a way that you don't prioritize these things. You don't prioritize breaks, and therefore you don't give a rest to your attention that already doesn't perform greatly when it has rest, and you don't give it rest, so it becomes harder.
Yeah. I know for me, either making decisions, um, generating ideas, creativity. You and I both write a lot, so that takes a certain amount of, um, I guess I'd equate it to the pathways in the brain got to be like open and smooth, and it's like an open highway, and the thoughts and the words, they need to flow, and the sentences need to, and I know one of the best ways that I've been able to really clear my head, um, is just a good brisk walk. I mean, I can't emphasize enough the power of something as simple as a walk, to be able to make decisions, think clearly.
Mhm.
Is that something you recommend to people as well?
Yes, and there are studies showing that if the walk is in nature rather than just around the block in a busy city, you replenish your attention much better.
Yeah, yeah. I I would go up to this. I haven't done it in a while because it's all mud now at this time of the year. But there's a lake like a mile or so from my house, but the loop is like 2.5 miles. And it's just complete nature. And
Hmm.
it's big enough where you really bump into anybody. But
Hmm.
and it's a big loop. And I always said that I'd get out of my car, park my car, do this 2.5 mile loop. I could think so clearly when I got back to my car. It was a I would classify it as an epic difference.
Right.
Just, and you could make decisions. You could think more clearly. So,
Hmm.
um,
There are many philosophers and famous writers of the past that speak very highly of going for a walk in between work sessions, and that their best ideas often happen in
yep,
the walk.
yeah. And decisions probably become easier. So,
Hmm.
which reduces that decision fatigue and hopefully increases willpower, which is what we're
Right.
talking about. So, yeah.
Right. Right.
Can we I think, as you know, I always like to give people something they can try and implement,
Hmm.
um, after the podcast and think about as they go along with their daily lives. So, is there a framework uh, that you work with people
Hmm.
to begin the process of building up willpower? I know one of the things you had mentioned, maybe understanding the amount of willpower you believe you have and then go from there. So, can you
Hmm.
walk us through, as you do so well methodically, just the framework for people to say, you know what, I know I can do this, but I need a little bit of a guide. So, can you
Hmm.
walk us through that?
Yes. Okay. There's a lot that I can say here, but let me take a step back. The way that I would think about this for everybody, but especially for people who struggle with ADD in any level, is think about working on your environment and working in yourself. So these are the two aspects of this work. In your environment, you would work by removing distractions as much as possible. And there are many good ways to do that. One thing that I have experimented with recently that I don't know, I didn't have this idea before, is that I'm leaving my phone permanently in do not disturb mode. It's like I have turned off the notification center forever. That
Forever.
horrible invention, right? That horrible invention of Apple or whatever it was, the notification center, the hub of distractions, it's off forever. I fixed the iPhone. I just leave it in do not disturb.
You've made a technology breakthrough.
I just leave it in do not disturb forever. And if there's something urgent, people know they can call me twice and that comes through.
Hmm.
But I never, my phone never distracts me anymore because it doesn't ding, it doesn't pop, it doesn't nothing, right? So that's one thing. Using website blockers, decluttering is huge. Like having a digital environment and a physical environment where at any given time you're only seeing the projects that you're working on that day.
Yeah.
That's huge because everything that you're seeing that is not relevant to what you're doing now is an invitation for distraction. It's in the back of your mind reminding you of the stuff that you should be doing that you're not doing now, and that makes your brain go into different directions at the same time,
Yeah.
or it builds that sense of overwhelm of not being good enough or frustration that no matter how much I do, things don't seem to move forward. There is a sense of futility that
Yeah.
can come up after this. So working on your environment is huge. Removing distractions as much as possible, decluttering, implementing. So there's an elaborate system of decluttering and task management that I go through, but everyone has to discover their own. The gist of it is this is going to impact your attention, your focus, and your well-being big time. So make sure that you explore how to implement this in your life. So these are some of the things that you can do on your environment side of things. And then the rest is inside in your mind, in your subjective world. Well, then it's about training these two core skills of awareness and willpower. How do you train willpower? You train willpower by making a strong intention and trying to hold on to that intention and execute on that intention as much as possible. So a strong intention is an intention that has some energy behind it, some emotion behind it. If I say like, this year I'm not going to eat, I have decided this year that I'm not going to eat any sugar. Right? That's a wish. It's very mild. This is not really willpower. This doesn't have much energy. The first time that I see a cheesecake, I probably have already forgotten this intention because it didn't really create an impression in me. And then you say, oh, resolutions don't work. Well, they do work, but that wasn't a resolution. That was just a thought.
Yeah.
Now, if instead I really take the time to take a deep breath and to tell myself, to gather energy around this intention and to tell myself, you know what? This year, I will not eat any sugar, no matter what. Right? You can feel a little bit in the tone of voice. And internally, you will feel a big difference between that first thing, which is just a thought, and the second one, which is a resolution. Right? So I would encourage people who want to experiment with willpower, slow down, take a deep breath, and then really focus your intention on what you want to create. And with some people that I have worked with as a coach, they were complaining about difficulty concentrating. They are following their schedule perfectly. They show up for work, but they're working slowly. They are not focusing. And I said, well, whenever you start a work session, let's say 1 hour, I have to do this one thing. Take 30 seconds to close your eyes, take a deep breath, and say to yourself, I will remain focused in every minute of this work session. And really just set that intention to yourself. And you may notice that maybe after 5 minutes, that intention is gone. You have already you've forgotten about it, and your mind is back to its normal way of working. But that's okay. If you do this every day, if you don't get discouraged, if you persevere, then maybe after some time, instead of 5 minutes, it's 6 minutes, it's 7 minutes, it's 10 minutes, it's 20 minutes, right? But you need to have the right mindset to know that training our ability to focus, training the power of our willpower, this is a long-term journey. It's a lifelong journey. I'm still training mine every day. I'm still improving on this every day. And then have the patience and the perseverance to approach it in this way, and you will get better.
I like that, because you're right. We get to January 1 and we go, I'm going to do this, and you really created the difference between a wish or a thought versus purposeful intention, which I don't think many of us put into practice and put the energy behind and the thought process, as well as the ability, like you say, to be patient. For example, I find the Pomodoro technique very effective. I wrote 2 books using it. Some people not so much, but they need to give it a try. So the concept is, the general template is, work 20 minutes, take 5 minutes off. But some people need to work 5 minutes and take 5 minutes, and then just increase that over time. And
Yes.
that's that intention, and that's that muscle that you talk about. So
Right.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I like a metaphor to better appreciate this. Imagine that our brain is like a big lamp, and the intensity of our will, of our intention, is the current that goes through that lamp. If it's a low voltage current, you're going to produce a little bit of light. If it's a high voltage current, you're going to produce more light. And so when you say to yourself, I'd like to stop eating sugar, that's a very low voltage current. The amount of power that your will generates here is very small. And therefore, the first obstacle that is bigger than that intention, it's gone. Yeah. Now, when you say, I'd love to is not just a preference. It's more like, I would love to stop eating sugar. That's a little bit more energy. I want to stop eating sugar. That's a desire. That's you're generating even more energy. I must stop eating sugar. It's not good for me. I must stop. Now that is more of a commitment. You generate even more energy.
Yeah.
Now, when you say to yourself, I will stop. I will no longer eat sugar, or I will not eat sugar any day this year. Now that has more energy about it. And so that's what we need to understand, the nuance that making an intention and exercising a willpower is not just having another thought. It's really holding on to that thought with some energy. Just like if you're hanging from a bar, you have to apply some strength in your muscles to keep there, otherwise you'll fall. It's the same thing. You generate a thought, which is what you want, and you have to hold on to it, right? You have to remember it and come back to it. And then little by little, your capacity will increase.
Yeah. I love that. What's the website where people can find you and find your books?
Okay, so you can go to mindfulselfdiscipline.com. You will find the books there. There's an app with guided meditation and other tools. And also you can contact me for coaching.
Awesome. So the books are Practical Meditation, Mindful Self-Discipline, which we've touched on today, and your new book, Wise Confidence. So I'm going to have to pick up the Wise Confidence one. So I'm looking forward to that one, because that's a big area with us with ADHD. So thank you. It was great connecting with you. We always have great discussions. As I always say, come back anytime. I know people enjoy our discussions, and you're very methodical in your advice. So thank you so much.